Working directly with companies like Amazon, Adobe, Instagram, and Autodesk, Spacester have formed a unique partnership to turn brilliant ideas into practical and scalable reality. In fact, we highly prize the role we play as the maker element of each of these companies' journeys into a tech-driven future.
Well, hello and welcome. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you're dialing in from around the globe. Appreciate you taking time to join Spacester today. My name's Alex Harvey. I'm VP of Sales with Spacester, and really excited to be sharing this latest demo live from Spacester with you, focusing on the concept of lockers and how they can be incorporated into the return to the office, return to the workplace. Really happy to see everyone who's joined us. Looks like there's one or two still coming in, and also anyone who's joining us via LinkedIn Live. Welcome and thanks for joining. So, wanted to jump straight into the subject, and lockers are a great topic right now, very current in many of the client conversations that we have and have been having over the last 12 months. Now, usually in these demo live sessions, we've been, as the name suggests, we've been demoing individual products, their features, how they work. But today we're really going to look at the bigger picture and how the return to workplace looks for many of our clients. What we would like to do is get an understanding of the bigger picture, the challenges and the issues, rather than going down too much of a rabbit hole of the technical features of any individual product and technical systems. What we'd also love to do is invite you to reach out if you have a specific project, specific requirement or project, and anything that I've said today sparks off some interest with you or with any of your clients. We'd love to do a deep dive, and then we can start to get into the detail of the different systems, how they may work, how they may be incorporated. And as I said, now is a very current time to be thinking about how lockers can be incorporated to your return to the office. I recognize we've obviously got a mix of different locations on the call here today. Everywhere globally, I think it's true to say, is at a slightly different stage of their roadmap of returning to the office, what that looks like, when that's going to happen, how that's going to happen. But I think we're seeing more and more people starting to really look at serious practical steps around how will we bring our people back into the office, what does that actually look like, and how can we best support the strategy that we want to develop. And we're certainly seeing a lot of clients now coming out with their future strategy. And how this has really impacted on personal storage or lockers has varied per client. With some clients, we've seen them, they may have existing lockers. We've seen them looking into increasing the number of existing lockers they had. They may have had a 50% to lockers to staff ratio, so 5 lockers for every 10 staff, or 80%. We're seeing people looking to add to that, so they increase to 100 or sometimes 120% lockers to staff. So that's one example. We've also seen many clients looking to either upgrade or adapt some of their existing lockers. So they may be taking existing lockers with a manual or a mechanical locking system and turning that into some kind of tech-enabled locking system, whether it's RFID or controlled via an app on your mobile phone. So some kind of upgrade of the locking solution, or maybe an upgrade of the actual finish itself. So the door finish can be completely replaced with a new color, a new finish, so that your staff see something different when they come back into the office. We've seen that with some clients as well. And then with other clients, we're seeing them start to look to implement personal storage and lockers for the first time. They may not have had a requirement for that previously, but with the new ways of working that COVID is now starting to bring about, they're recognizing the need for that. And that was what I wanted to touch on before we jump into the detail of any solutions, was the whole subject of the hybrid workplace and what that looks like for many clients. So we've seen many of our organizations that we work with start to now discuss or maybe even to publicly announce, this is what our return to the office is going to look like, whether it's going to be remote first, whether it's going to be fully remote, whether it's going to be hybrid, whatever that happens to be. So there's an emerging and developing story about how people are going to use their workplace. And I think the analogy I saw from a post on LinkedIn by Eric Kerr from DoorDash a couple of days ago was a great way of describing this. And what he was saying was that we need to look at our workplaces as a tool which can be used in the same way as we use many of the other tools that are provided for us to be effective and productive, whether it's Slack, whether it's Zoom, whether it's Teams, whatever it happens to be. We can use our workplace as just another tool in our armory. We're able to use that to be productive and get the right kind of work done, get the tasks done that we have to today. And we've seen, as I say, many of our clients bringing about their future workplace strategy. I think one of the things that's really important in any of these strategies as they're announced and as they're being developed is to keep built in a flexibility and a fluidity within whatever strategy your organization chooses. And what we mean by that is, firstly, a strategy of mindset and of thinking. That whatever we put out there hasn't yet been road tested. We've never been in this kind of global situation in the past. This is really a trial and experiment. So any strategy we put out there has to be subject to, we need to put in rigorous testing and reviews and feedback and make sure that this is actually working for our people. And then also the flexibility of the solution that was implemented, because we may go down a certain route and then find that didn't quite work. And we need to change and adapt and adjust things. So all of these things are something you should be considering when you're designing your return to the office, in particular consideration of personal storage. And then the other thing that we've also seen with many of our clients is the workplace strategy that's kind of the headline that's publicly announced. That isn't necessarily the right strategy for every individual employee within that organization. So we have some clients who come out with their announcement that they're going, fully hybrid. Now, that may work for some employees, but everyone will have their own personal preferences for how they'd like to work. They may have different home situations. They might have different availability of space or in their apartment at home. They may have a different role that means they have to be either purely office-based or purely home-based or some other mix. And also, I think that will adapt for any individual, any employee, that will change and adapt, or potentially change and adapt over time as well. So their preferences, the way they want to work, the way they like to work, and maybe the way they need to work because of their role, that could adapt and change over time. So the scenarios we're going to discuss are really around where the majority of your personal items, the things that you use to do your day-to-day work, are going to be stored the majority of the time. So we're talking here about personal storage. And I'm thinking of things like the storage of the technology add-ons that you use at your desk, whether it's a webcam, whether it's a keyboard and mouse, whether it's maybe the files and folders that you're currently working on, whether it's, whatever that might happen to be. But where are those going to be stored the majority of the time? So in this example, this is what we're calling an office first hybrid. So for this type of individual, for this type of organization, the majority of those personal items will be stored at the office, and in this case they'll be mainly needing personal storage at the office. So what that means is that they will need assigned storage. They'll need personal lockers that are assigned to them, and there are many different technology based or RFID based or key based solutions for lockers that would enable this to happen. And in some ways, the actual technology that's used is a different conversation. But what we're really looking at is how can the personal storage support and enable the locker strategy or the personal storage strategy or the workplace strategy of that organization. So, as I said, this is what we're calling the office first hybrid, and those personal storage items will be in an assigned locker at work. And what that will mean is when this individual is working from home, which might be 1 day a week, it might be 3 days a week, or it might differ from 1 week to the next, they won't necessarily carry all of those things home with them when they're working from home. So that's the first example. The second is again, we've seen this with many clients, is a home first hybrid. So again, the things that you use on a day-to-day basis, they'll be at home. You'll come into the office for many times for either a function or an event or a meeting or a brainstorm or something, maybe a task related, some kind of task related meeting or something. But in this case, the employee will largely be based from home. Their stuff, the things that they need, will be at home. Obviously, when they're coming into the office, they will need a place to work. So whether they're in a meeting or whether they're working in kind of an open plan space, just doing tasks, but they will need a place to work, and they will also likely need somewhere secure to store their stuff. And again, there are a number of different technologies that could support this, but in this particular case, we would usually see this being some kind of either self-service or temporary locker assignment, where you have a locker available to you for a day, a week, a month, however long that happens to be, but that locker isn't necessarily yours forever. And that can, when the employee's finished with that, or maybe no longer needs that because they're returning to be working from home, that locker can be vacated and can be used by somebody else. And again, some of the technology-based solutions, the RFID card, the app-based solutions can help with that. And then finally, we've got the completely nomadic type of role. So completely free-flowing, no fixed location particularly. And my personal feeling is that this could well emerge as one of the most popular long-term roles, where you're not necessarily based at home or at work. You may vary that from one week to the next, from one day to the next, maybe from 1 month to the next, depending on your workload, depending on the tasks that you have to do, maybe depending on the projects and the team you're working with at that moment in time. But I personally believe this could well emerge as one of the most popular. So this is a very flexible and free-flowing role. Again, when this individual is in the office, in the workplace, they will need secure storage of some sort, whether it's to store their gym bag, to secure their cycle helmet, or their laptop bag, whatever it happens to be. But they won't necessarily need an assigned locker that's always belonging to them. So that's a few ideas around the different ways of working. There's a few other things related to personal storage, which I think are also worth putting into the conversation. One of the things we've seen emerging with a lot of our clients is other supporting solutions, including parcel lockers. Now, what we mean by that, this was something which was becoming a big subject in the agile workplaces we were seeing kind of 12, 18, 24 months ago, where you may have an employee who isn't necessarily based at the same desk every day, not even necessarily on the same floor of the building every day. And people were ordering in, Amazon parcels or something coming in from some external provider, or sometimes internal parcels need to be delivered, things like maybe your laptop being returned from IT or something like that, or a document that you need to sign. So both external and internal parcels were coming to be delivered to individuals, and it's very difficult to track them down. So a number of our partner lock manufacturers, I should say, have a system of some sort where we can, or the employee can receive a parcel, maybe the concierge or somebody in the loading dock or something like that can receive a parcel for an individual. They can log onto a piece of software and they can choose which employee, which member of the team this parcel's to go to. That will then release a locker for that parcel to be placed inside. And at the same time, it will send that employee a text or an email saying there's a parcel for you and it's in locker number 22. They can then, at their convenience, when they're next in the office, they can come along, use a QR code or use an RFID swipe badge to open the locker, to retrieve their parcel, and then that frees that locker up for the next person. So these are ideas that have been used in many workplaces already. And again, we're seeing those as potentially quite important part of the more distributed way of working, the more hybrid way of working that's emerging post-COVID. So these are just a few ideas around the solutions and how they might work. As well as this, we've also got the actual lock itself, and there are many options to consider there. So we've talked about RFID type solutions, and just to be clear what we mean by that, the RFID badge is the small swipe card that you would use maybe to come in through your access doors or your access external access doors to the building, maybe through to give you access into the elevators. But that's the embedded security code which enables you to access different parts of the building. And that employee badge will also potentially enable you to access your locker. So we can tie the user credentials to that individual, so we know that that person has the locker. And then behind the locker system, when we're using that type of application, behind the locker system is a piece of software which then gives us visibility of occupancy, whether it's on a local level or potentially on a global level, looking at potentially all of your sites globally and what the locker occupancy is, or maybe drilling down that individual locker on the 3rd floor that's been locked for 3 months. Why is that? Is it because the employee left the organization? Is it because maybe it was a visitor who used the locker for 1 day and then didn't return it? So we can get a lot of visibility of how the lockers are being used in order to make them more effective and efficient in the future. And with all these lock type solutions, you've also got the opportunity to have an app controlled solution. So you're using your smartphone. With many locks, you have the opportunity to also, where we've got these software based or technology based solutions, you've got the opportunity also to consider whether they're battery operated, which is great from a flexibility point of view and from an installation point of view. But then we also need to consider, well, someone will have to replace those batteries at some point in the future. If you've got a large number of lockers, someone will have to replace those batteries. So that's another thing to consider. Or maybe we look at a hardwired solution, so something that's actually wired in physically to the power in the building. And again, that has some great upsides. It means you never have to replace batteries, but we have to ensure the power is available in the right locations in the first place. And then if it's a technology or a software-based solution, is the data collected through some kind of wireless technology, whether it's Wi-Fi, low energy Bluetooth, whatever it might happen to be, or is it data connected through hard data connections? So these are some of the other ideas to consider. And then finally, we wanted to get to the fun part, which is the aesthetic and designs. So there's just a slideshow of different projects and images, just showing you the kinds of looks and feels that can be created. Love you to ask questions if you've got anything you'd like to know more about, or any of the images you've seen you'd like to know more about. This is a great one where we had the Great Wall of China across the front of all those lockers. But what you'll see is that every project Space will do is unique. We're able to use our unique mass customization approach to enable us to deliver the right solution for every individual client. So what that client actually has is unique to them. The design is unique to them. So I think that brings us to the end of the overall discussion. As I said, really happy to answer any questions that you might have. I'll leave this slideshow just rolling. So if there's anything else you'd like to know more about, feel free to unmute yourself or to use the chat box and pop a question in. Alternatively, also would love to invite you to join Space Store in our next Insights Live, which is our workplace discussion around the future of work and bringing in thought leaders, workplace strategy experts on a global basis. So we'd love to invite you to join us on the 8th of April, and you can register. We'll put the link into the chat box. You can register and join that in a few weeks' time. Otherwise, that brings us to the end of today's discussion. Thanks for joining, and I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day.